Well, everybody, I am back today to talk about the film that everybody's going to be talking about for the next 2-3 weeks, hell, maybe 2 to 3 months, depending on the success of this movie, which honestly, after viewing it, I have a feeling that this is going to do incredibly well in the box office. And I'm excited to talk about this movie today. Last year, I went through Denis Villeneuve's entire filmography and watched every single one of his movies and ranked all of his movies. And I also watched Dune for the very first time. I was one of the few people who did not see Dune when it was initially released in 2021. I watched it at home, and to be quite honest, I was kind of kicking myself that I didn't see that Dune Part 1 in the theater, because just the visual spectacle alone of the movie was remarkable. It was beautiful, it was incredibly shot, the production design was amazing, the performances were incredible, and a lot of people give it criticism because it's just part of a movie, right? It's leading up into something much bigger. But what I will say about Dune Part 1 is I think it does a phenomenal job at delivering exposition to you as a viewer, introducing you to characters and building this world without ever being boring. It never feels like it's forced. It's introducing you into a very complex world. And I just rewatched it last night, actually, before I went to go watch Dune Part 2 today. And in rewatching it again, I just grew a fonder appreciation for it. And honestly, it just made me so excited to go into Dune Part 2. I got to go see an IMAX screening of it, and I'm looking forward to talking about it with you today. Dune Part 2 is directed by Denis Villeneuve. Follow the mythic journey of Paul Atreides as he unites with Chani and the Fremen while on the path of revenge against the conspirators who destroyed his family. Facing a choice between the love of his life and the fate of the known universe, Paul endeavors to prevent a terrible future only he can foresee. So, I was very excited to see this movie, and in initial reviews, I heard people saying this was the greatest science fiction film of all time, that this was a masterpiece, it's going to be the greatest film of the year. And when you see high praise like that for a movie, you have to sit back and say, okay, are they sensationalizing this? Is it just the excitement of seeing something new? And the answer to that question is no. They are 100% accurate. I have been alive 33 going on 34 years, and this is one of the greatest science fiction movies I've ever seen in my entire life. My jaw was on the ground virtually the entire movie. The attention to detail when it comes to the production design, the cinematography, the performances, the incredible score from Hans Zimmer. It's just an amazing experience that in my age now, I was reminiscing on going to watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy in the theater for the first time, or hell, experiencing the Star Wars prequels, which I know are not to the level of the original trilogy, but getting excited for something of that grandiose of a scale, a franchise that is that beloved, and just hoping for an experience like that, and thinking about the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which in my opinion is one of the greatest trilogies of film of all time, and the way that that made me feel, that's exactly how this movie made me feel. I was all over the place emotionally. It's incredibly thought-provoking, and I'm not going to go too into detail with the plot of Dune Part 2, because I think going in as blindly as possible is the best way to do it, but I'll give it a little brief summary. So in Dune Part 2, we are jumped right back into the end of Dune Part 1, where Paul Atreides, played by Timothée Chalamet, is traveling through the desert with Chani, played by Zendaya, his mother, Lady Jessica, played by Rebecca Ferguson, and Stilgar, played by Javier Bardem. And the Fremen have this prophecy of a person that is going to come and save their people and deliver them to the promised land. And that person is the Lisan al-Gaib. And they talk about it throughout the film, about how they all believe that Paul Atreides is the Lisan al-Gaib. And so the entirety of the film is Timothée Chalamet's character trying to come to terms as to whether or not there's any truth in that, while he doesn't really necessarily care about the prophecy. He cares so much more about protecting the Fremen and avenging his father's death and going after the Harkonnens who killed his father in the first movie. And we get all of these new groups introduced, new characters introduced throughout the film, and it's the journey with Paul Atreides to find out if he is this prophesized person. So like I said, this movie is one of the best science fiction films I've ever seen. And talking about it in great detail is difficult because I could probably make a 30-minute video breaking down every element of this movie. But so that I don't keep you here all day long, for starters, I want to talk about the performances. Everyone involved in this movie is incredible. Everything you're hearing about the performances in this movie is fantastic. I've been a big Timothée Chalamet fan for the past couple years. He's had some movies that I've really just found him to be remarkable. I loved his performance in Bones and All. I thought he was absolutely amazing. I wasn't the biggest fan of Wonka, but his trajectory is on the up and up, and he's doing a lot of great performances. This is my favorite performance Timothée Chalamet has delivered. The range that he has in this movie is fantastic, and I think he fits Paul Atreides' character perfectly. Zendaya is absolutely phenomenal in this movie. From initial reactions, I'm not hearing a ton about her performance, but she was one of my favorites. Javier Bardem is incredibly charming. He adds a lot of comedy into the movie. He's just really great. Rebecca Ferguson is phenomenal. She has a lot to do in this movie, and her character goes through a lot emotionally and physically, and the performance that she delivers is remarkable. Austin Butler, who plays one of the Harkonnens in this film, you're going to hear a lot about his performance over the next couple months, and I think he plays a very incredible, menacing villain. He doesn't have a ton of screen time. I would say he's probably in it for a half hour, 45 minutes. There's a big arc with his character, and while he's in the movie, he is phenomenal. Florence Pugh shows up in this, and the time that she's in it, she's great. Christopher Walken's fantastic. Like I said, everyone in this movie fits their role perfectly. Dave Bautista even is just absolutely incredible in this film. Josh Brolin, they do an incredible job with the material they're given. The cinematography in this is spectacular. Just the sheer scope of this movie and the amount of characters in the frame and moments and how the characters interact with the setting. It just something I haven't stopped thinking about since I left the theater. It's like your eyes are processing it while you're watching it, but it takes you a minute just to really appreciate how much attention to detail there is in every single moment in this movie. The production design when it comes to the costumes and just how each group of people has a distinctive look. It's amazing. It's absolutely incredible what Villeneuve was pulling off with this movie. And you know, Dune is a book that has been around for quite some time now, and it's a book that dives into a lot of different themes, and I think Villeneuve here really does an amazing job at incorporating the themes of Dune onto the big screen. This film looks at warfare in general and how war is started, how groups of people are perceived, racism against groups of people, hatred towards groups of people for misunderstanding, why wars are started, the manipulation that begins wars, how people go into these conflicts with a specific intent and how that intent can shift over time. And I think it's incredibly poignant, especially in the culture we're living in now. And I was thinking about the conflict in Gaza right now, and just watching a movie like this that is looking at war and battle through this very specific lens, and then how the film looks at religion and critiques religion and looks at religion through a very unique lens. Like, you get to see the beauty in people who appreciate religion and hold on to these belief systems, but how these belief systems can also manipulate a group of people into doing things and extreme things that can put their lives in danger because they dedicate their whole life to this specific thing. And I think these are really large conversations that you wouldn't necessarily see attached to a science fiction film, and it's handled so delicately and poignantly. And every second that there was a new bit of information introduced to you as an audience member, I was just blown away by just where my brain was throughout the entire runtime of the movie. The action sequences in this are incredible. There's so many different set pieces when it comes to the action sequences. I was not expecting the level level of different scenery. Obviously, you think of Arrakis and you think of the sand everywhere, but there's so many different settings in this, and the way Villeneuve is able to play with that. We get to go to the planet where the Harkonnens live, and it's shot completely differently. There are a lot of like experimental film techniques used in this movie too, and like editing transitions. The way sound is used in this movie is very unique. It can be very loud and in your face in an impressive way, but it also can be very stripped back and quiet in the more nuanced moments between characters and building intimate relationships. And that's the thing that I think impressed me the most about this movie, is for a film that has a very grand scale, it allows the intimate relationships to breathe. You're not watching this movie that's so bombastic that it forgets about its characters. It really gives the characters time to grow and for you to learn more about the characters. And that's what I was so impressed with in this movie, is there's a lot going on, but the fact that there's a lot going on executed in a way, it doesn't feel like anything is skipped over, and that's what's really impressive. And I just loved every second of this movie. For its almost 3-hour runtime, it was a breeze. This thing could have been like 9 hours long, and I would have loved every second of it. I was just so immersed in this world, and I cannot wait for whatever Villeneuve does in this universe again. It's a remarkable film. I have a feeling next year's Oscars, this is going to win a lot of awards, or at least be nominated for a lot of awards. This could end up being the best movie of the year, and we're only going into March right now, which is really impressive to me. Go see this as soon as you can. It demands to be watched in a theater. So have you seen Dune Part 2? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was incredible. It is my favorite movie of this year so far, and it's gonna be really hard to beat. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.